Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on. That way you can stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Neighbors steal our dog, we take their kids. This happened when I was around 12 to 13, so the details might be a little skewed. Most of my childhood, the house right next to ours has been condemned and abandoned. The property owners were willing to sell the land for $200. That's how bad it was. My family didn't buy it because the land tax in our area is high because we're a school of choice. Eventually someone bought it and threw a manufactured home onto it to replace the condemned house. Soon a nice old man moved in next door, and we didn't pay too close attention because he kept to himself. That was until his daughter moved in with him. Soon our quiet little neighborhood turned into an episode of white trash in trouble. The daughter would fight with her spouse about every little thing and keep my family, along with our neighbors, up half the night. Their kids were the worst part of all. We never knew how many kids lived in that house because how many different children and adults were in and out of there all the time. Me and my siblings tried to become friends with them because there aren't many kids in our age in that town. We ended up being more of their babysitters than just a friendly neighbor kid. They would come over to our house and each of my siblings had a group of kids, 3 to 4 each, to watch over. These kids would walk in uninvited into our house, while we would play with their sibling in the yard, then steal toys and games from our rooms. Honestly, they stole stuff from all over the house, but this was the main area. They would either take it for themselves or throw it in our backyard river. They did that a lot if we made them mad for taking back our stuff. They would constantly run in and out of the house, even if no one was with them. They would steal all of the fruit in the basket my mom left out for us. And my mom didn't kick them out immediately because she never wanted to deny a kid food if they needed it. But my mom did confront the parents about their behavior, and their 3-year-old son called her a bitch. The parents refused to apologize for their behavior, saying stuff like, "If you loved it so much, you wouldn't have let them take it," or "Don't you parent my kid." One thing they would specifically do with me is they'd pull on my hair all the time. I'm a tomboy, and they would just call me a boy in a wig because girls can't play with skateboards, girls can't play with ninja action figures, or any other gender stereotype. They would constantly bombard me because they truly didn't know girls were allowed to play with anything they wanted. So one of the heavier children stole my skateboard and jumped on it, breaking it in half. Similar to that "so no head" vine. Then they said I shouldn't have been playing with one anyway. There are plenty more examples, but I think you get the point. The neighbors decided that because our house was nicer, they had permission to run an electrical line from our backyard plugs to their house, which in itself is a bad thing, but they decided to run off our electrical bill to triple the cost of our original. We were lower middle class / below property level, so we couldn't afford that kind of bill. The rule in our house is if you're not using it, it's turned off. That's why my parents were awfully surprised to see an $800 electrical bill. Eventually, a person from our electric company came to our house to see what was happening. They found an extension cord running from their house. The electrician simply unplugged it, then warned the neighbors of the legal reasons why they can't do that, then said that should be the end of the problem. My mom politely but sternly went to the neighbors to say that this was not okay. The neighbor had a small adult tantrum about it and cussed my mom out, but eventually came back into her home. My mom was obviously not pleased with her behavior, but tried to not escalate the situation any further. Our neighbors tried 1 or 2 more times to run the line from our house to theirs. They would move it at night so we wouldn't see the move. Each time when we unplugged it, they would cuss us out and send their kids over to destroy something else in our home. Eventually, Mom straight up told them if they come over to our property again, she would call the police and press charges. We would still be friends with their kids, but they weren't allowed on our land. They decided that because we won't let them use our electricity, that the next best option was to steal our dog from the backyard and claim that our dog attacked her kids, even though our dog was harmless and cowers at everything due to bad owners before us. I'm guessing because our dog liked to rip her tags off a lot that the neighbors said she was a stray that attacked them. The pound came and took our puppo away. By the time my brothers and I got home, she was already gone. We just assumed she ran off to our grandmother's who lived down the street. She'd do this often because my grandma spoils her. When my parents came home, they about lost it, learning our dog was missing. We obviously looked for her but couldn't find her. After 2 days, we found her at the dog pound. The officer said it was obvious that our dog didn't hurt their kids, but they still had to take it in for an evaluation. My parents had spent $200 to get her out. The pound told us why the dog was taken, and my mom said enough was enough. Now the revenge. When my mom got home, she sent my little brother over to their house to play with their kids. He was still friends with some of them at the time. My brother became a little spy that day. His job was to look around their house and report anything that could be sus. We learned from him that day that they were sitting 3 kids to a twin bed. The entire house was cramped and dirty. The old man that lived there was hardly home because he couldn't stand his adult daughter that lives there, but he didn't want to evict her from the home and leave his grandkids homeless. All around, the kids were being neglected. With the information my brother gathered from my mom, she called CPS on the home. Within the month, all of the children, minus 1, who the old man cared for, were removed from the home. While I agree the foster system is bad, it was definitely better than what they were going through in that house. The mother of the children had started to fight with the old man, her father, on everything, because her kids were no longer there as a distraction. The old man was to be her next victim. The old man eventually was fed up and kicked her out of the house. All that was left in the home was the old man and the grandson he was fostering. They're both very kind and very amazing neighbors. TLDR, Karen took our dog, so we took the kids. Edit. Reading some comments here, here's some clarification. I'm not sure on the exact time frame. It happened about 7 years ago, and I was still fairly young at the time. But I believe that this event lasted no more than 3 or 4 weeks. We lived in a really safe neighborhood, so the thought about locking the doors during the daytime wasn't on our mind. Mostly because either me or one of my siblings were constantly in and out of the house, and my parents didn't trust us to not lose keys and be stuck outside in the winter time. By breaking in, I mean they would go into our house while we played in the yard. There were so many of them that we didn't notice if 1 or 2 went missing for a short time. They were still allowed at my house after the stealing because in our kid brains we were still friends with them. There are not a lot of younger kids in our area, so we took what we could get. We were friends with them and didn't want to lose our friendship. The kids banned us from our house after a week or so, but once in a while they would still come in if they were hanging out with us. I asked my mom after, and she said she didn't call the police because she was friends with our neighbor, the old man, and didn't want to cause any tension with him. And that if the daughter was a permanent neighbor, we didn't want her to be mad at us for calling the police. I hope that clears it up a bit. Edit 2. I accidentally said the wrong thing about the dog. She was impounded, so we had to pay $200 to get her out. We had her tags, they just weren't on her. We didn't have to readopt her like how I remembered. I fixed the story up a little to make things more clear. Steal my iPod? F your laptop. A story from 2007. I posted this on Petty Revenge, but after thinking about it, it actually may be better suited here. Imagine being in high school back in the latter days of George Bush and finally buying that iPod of your dreams. After saving up your allowance and the money you made around the neighborhood doing random ass work and lifeguarding at the local pool. Yep, that was me, and I was the douchebag 14-year-old who would make sure you knew I had one of the better iPods, one that could play video. It was the latest Nano if I remember right, simpler times. But every story needs an antagonist. My sister happened to find that role many times. We're very close now, but back then it wasn't so rosy. She was a teenager as well and spent most of those years resenting me. If I had something nice, F you for having that. I was quite protective of my precious iPod. She raised quite the shitstorm when my parents refused to buy her one. Your brother's saving his money. We didn't pay for it. We're not stopping you from buying one too if you save your money. That was their attitude towards any luxury that us kids wanted, even up to that time when buying a first car was on the table. We each had to buy our own. It built character and taught responsibility. Well, that iPod goes missing one day at home when I knew damn well I had left it charging at the family computer. I left it unattended. My parents confirmed they did not touch it, and all eyes were on my sister. I'll jump ahead here. As it turned out, she had indeed taken it and had one of her friends temporarily store it until the heat was off her. She knew my parents would essentially strip search her. After this unraveled, one of my buddies saw her with the iPod at school several days later. It was time for payback. Back then, I liked to think of myself as a bona fide hacker. That's right, I knew all about batch files and how to open command prompt. Don't cross me, you have no idea what I'm capable of. Yeah, anyway, we don't talk about those dark days. But I actually did know enough on how to copy-paste some destructive commands into scripts using del and regdelete commands and the like. In the days of Windows XP, this would essentially require reinstalling the OS. I was also aware of a program called bat2exe, which could package your batch files and associated files it would call from the same directory into a normal executable file, and you could pick an icon to slap on that executable if you had the ICO file on hand. It doesn't take a genius, because as much as I thought I was one, I wasn't, to devise a plan here. I put a script together with the worst stuff I could muster and gave it the Internet Explorer icon. This went on to my sister's computer, which was an old Pentium M laptop, which barely had enough ass to load MySpace at the time. My hacker abilities allowed me to log into the admin account by booting into safe mode or something, and simply replacing the Internet Explorer main file with my science experiment. I believe I had it to where I actually opened the real Internet Explorer in parallel, so I could deny this more easily. Fast forward to that magical moment. She's home from color guard practice and is ready for an evening full of shitty webcam photos that use every mid-2000s effect ever created. But before she can upload them, disaster! The screen resolution goes tits up, and the color profile is 16 colors for some reason. Random pop-up messages every few seconds. Microsoft Windows has detected a giant cunt. Please consider a system upgrade, and stuff like that. Your hard drive is jammed with peanut butter. Restart required. The whole script plays out and she's left with a paperweight until someone can get around to sorting it. Unfortunately, the computer guy in the family took quite a while to get around to it. My dad knew damn well that I had something to do with this, even if he didn't understand it fully. He made my sister apologize to me before I helped her with the laptop and made her buy me a new case for it, after she threw away the one I had to try and make less identifiable. Well, that's the story, folks. I have a video from 8+ years ago of this script running in a virtual machine if anyone wants to see it. Hope 2021 is off to a decent start for you. Feeling supersonic. Edit. Here's the video. I made this after submitting this to ProRevenge in 2013. Completely forgot I had done it back then. My old account got banned in 2013 because I told someone on shit Reddit says to grow up or something. Edit 2. To people asking what happened to the iPod, I got it back after learning from my buddy that she was going to have it on her. She was in a world of shit from my very traditional discipline that child parents, in addition to her laptop being a boat anchor for a few weeks. And there you have it, folks, the end of today's ProRevenge. Did you like it? If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video and also make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. That way you can stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.